So the Ben Shapiro debate. This is, I feel like, what everyone's been talking about. It's highly anticipated. We brought it up to you if you would debate Ben. You said yes. That clip went viral. We brought it up to Ben when we had him on if he would debate you. He said yes. That clip went viral. How did this all come about?
I'm kind of friendly with Lex, and I think I did a Jubilee show, and Jubilee asked me at the end, could you film like a call out to Ben Shapiro and maybe we could host it? Lex saw that and Lex was like, hey, do you think I could get this debate? And I love Jubilee, but Lex is like the guy that would let me have a 2 to 3 hour uninterrupted conversation. Jubilee will shoot 3 hours of content and they cut it down to like 45 minutes. And I just feel like Lex's platform would have been really good for that. So I was like, well, if you think you can get the debate, then go for it. And then Lex did a bunch of work in the background and he, got the debate.
Was that hard to schedule with Ben?
Probably, but Lex set all of that up.
He facilitated all of it.
Yeah.
Were you nervous for the debate with Ben?
Not particularly, no.
How did you prepare for that? Did you just go in, or did they give you topics to talk about and you could research them?
I think it was going to be a pretty broad conversation. So we went over, it must have been like 10 topics in like 2 hours. And a lot of the Trump-related stuff is more, I'm just kind of like curious because it's such an easy topic on my end and such an indefensible topic on their end. I'm just more curious, like, how are you going to try to navigate this particular thing? But I've been doing a lot of political stuff for the past like 4 to 6 months now, ever since I started Vyvanse and stopped talking to Red Pillar. So, my brain has been pretty plugged in politically. So I felt like pretty okay to go on it. Yeah.
Interesting. You think that Trump stuff is indefensible?
Yeah, obviously. Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, easily.
Huh. Well, I just think that like half of the nation, well, not half, but a pretty, 40% approval rating for Trump?
I know that the conservative approval rating is always very, 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 very high. Yeah.
My general thought is that I feel like it's somewhat defensible if 40% of the general population is somewhat in support of something, but that's beside the point. We want to know.
I find for the Trump stuff, I would just say most people just don't know the facts of anything that have happened. So when you don't know the facts, you think that like, oh yeah, well, people are indicting him for no reason. Everybody hates him for no reason. People say he stole the election for no reason. They try to say there's an insurrection for no reason. But when you actually lay out all the facts, then it's like, okay, oof.
But if you go up against Ben Shapiro, I mean, his whole thing is like facts. At least that's what he claims. So don't you think that he would at least have a different angle?
He criticizes Trump a lot, though.
The thing is, Ben Shapiro took. This is the funny part: is that when you go to the people that know, their defenses start to look, in my opinion, very wacky. So Ben Shapiro's defense of Trump was that he graves him on a big curve, so he gives him a lot of leeway, and that Trump would try to take over the government as a dictator, which he tried to do, but Ben feels like the guardrails are strong enough that he won't be able to do it, even if he tries a second time. So it's more of an admission than like most people will make. I find that insane, but yeah.
Do you think Ben was the hardest debate you've ever had?
Probably not, but not because it was a dumb debate or not because he didn't know anything, but just because it was just kind of like surface level and everything. We kind of like hit topics and then moved to the next one on kind of a surface level way. So I'm sure if we had like a 2 or 3 hour conversation on like 1 or 2 topics, it would be far more challenging. Yeah.
Would you have preferred that to go deeper on each topic? Because I noticed it seems as though some of these topics are only like 10, 15 minutes long. They give you a few minutes, him a few minutes, another few minutes between both of you, and then it was on to the next.
There was a part where Ben was like, here, let me actually draw this out for you. And he looks for like a pen and a piece of paper to be able to draw this line curve of job production between like Joe Biden and Donald Trump. But then Lex was like, all right, we got to like take this back. We're getting a little too granular.
Yeah, I would definitely prefer that, but it's also like, it's like a first conversation. So you have to buy a little bit of trust with the other person. I think it was a good conversation for a first conversation.
Are you going to have another one?
Hopefully. We'll see. There's nothing like planned right now, though. So.
What's different when you debate Ben versus somebody else?
Nothing. I try to take a similar approach to everybody in that, like, there's a dynamic approach depending on the person that I'm talking to, how radical or not radical they are, how reasonable or not reasonable they are, how much of a showman they are versus how much of a stick to the facts kind of person they are. So Ben, I'll have like a unique approach to Ben, but it all stems out from like the same type of dynamic approach I take to everybody.
The one thing that you mentioned in that debate that I did notice, and I noticed a lot of people doing this, is you would make a point and they would counter that point by not addressing the point, but saying, well, we shouldn't focus on this. We should focus on all these other things. How do you navigate something like that and get someone back to the point? It seems like a lot of times they'll avoid the point entirely.
Well, there are 2 different concepts you're talking about that sound similar, but they're totally different. In terms of policy, that was the one that I was focused on with Ben, and that I feel like sometimes conservatives will, I call it like the conservative merry-go-round, where anytime you want to address a thing, they want to address another thing, or if you want to make an incremental change somewhere, they'll say, we can't do that incremental change because it doesn't fix everything, so we should only focus on this. And that's very frustrating to me. So for instance, you might say something like red flag laws for firearms, the ability to flag people and say, this guy's probably a danger, maybe we should do something about it. They'll say like, oh, well, that doesn't fix gang violence, so we shouldn't do this. It's like, Okay. Or I think the examples that we were going through in that conversation were in schools. I think
Yes.
air conditioning and food availability are like two of like the easiest, most data-driven, helpful things to children in school. And that would be a thing that could help a little bit. But Ben's point, which is true, is that, well, this is going to fix the schools. I was like, well, of course not, but it helps. Well, we need to fix like families or whatever, right? And
Correct.
I feel like anytime you want to focus on like a particular problem or try to help in an incremental way, conservatives will hop back 1 or 2 steps and go, well, it doesn't fix everything, so we need to do this radical society-changing thing, like enforcing shotgun marriages, I think was his
That was
solution.
it,
I'm like,
yeah.
okay, well, this feels...
Recommending shotgun marriages.
Recommending it. But I will say that's different than in a debate when somebody won't ever address a point you're bringing
Sure.
up, which I don't think Ben ever did that. I don't think he like avoided
No.
addressing a particular point. Yeah.
No,
What I thought was really interesting is it sounded honestly kind of like a therapy session of like two like a wife and a husband that have been together for a super long time and they're having struggles in the relationship. Like you would say, man, I just feel like conservatives always do this. They do the conservative merry-go-round and they don't attack the issues where they have the control. And then Ben was like, I feel like liberals always ignore the iceberg. They're just focused on the thing that's above the waterline when there's this whole massive problem underneath it. And it was really funny, just like the difference in, I don't know.
Yeah, the reality is you have to come at it from both ends, but anytime you talk to somebody on the left or the right, they only want to address their end and then vent their frustrations about the other end, which is very frustrating. So anytime you try to bring somebody a little bit over to the middle where it's like, the family structure is incredibly important, obviously for a whole bunch of different predictive things in society, but also there's incremental changes you can make in schools too. We can do both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both, but people get really hung up on their particular thing. Yeah.
Who do you think won the debate?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't think it was like a huge debate. Like I think we kind of like bounced through topics. I don't think that we, resolutely concluded on a particular thing where it's like, you're wrong about schools or you're wrong about Trump or you're wrong about whatever. It was just kind of our different perspectives in terms of how we viewed those things.
What do you think Ben would say? Do you think he would say he won?
I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure.
I feel like people on the left would probably just say you won. People on the right would probably say he won.
Maybe, yeah, depends. Some people on the left will say I won because my points were better on like Trump or something, or they'll say I lost because I needed to push him way harder on other things. And I'm sure there are people on the right that say, oh, Ben crushed him because he said the things that they agree with, and there might be some people on the right who's like Ben didn't do as good because he should have crushed him on these points or whatever. Yeah.
You posted on Twitter yesterday that you finally dressed up for a podcast or interview, and it was a photo of you and Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
I want to know how that conversation went. Was it more of a debate or a conversation that's not released yet? Because it was just filmed yesterday. I'm assuming this is probably going to be released before that. Maybe we could get some teasers.
Some teasers. I didn't expect him to stand up. We got into a physical fight about 45 minutes in, which was crazy. It's hard to say who won exactly because no, I'm just kidding. It was definitely, it went from like conversation to like debate to conversation to debate to conversation. I think I was pretty happy with the level of combativeness. He seems like he's somebody that's able to ratchet it up and then kind of like bring it back a little bit and not be completely unhinged.